SBC Media.
Welcome to the iGaming Daily Podcast, analysing the news from the betting and gaming industry all over the globe, supported by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market.
Intralot has completed its €2.7 billion deal to acquire Bally's Interactive, bringing to an end one of 2025's biggest M&A deals in iGaming. The deal has raised eyebrows from the Mediterranean to the Atlantic, as market analysts in Athens and Wall Street label the deal as the coming together of an odd couple. But with a rapidly evolving sector both in Europe and North America, the acquisition of Bally's Interactive signals a landmark moment for Intralot's online ambitions. So, what are the pros and cons of this deal, and will this new venture deliver a positive result? Welcome back to iGaming Daily, supported by Optimove, the creator of positionless marketing and the #1 player engagement platform. I'm Charlie Horner, and today I'm joined by SBC's editor-at-large, Ted Menmuir, and our managing editor, Jessica Welman. Ted, how's things?
Fine, very well, Charlie. Glad it's Monday, and looking forward to this one.
Brilliant. And Jess, how are you?
Ready to tackle the world again after a busy but always exhausting week at G2E.
Yeah, brilliant. Well, let's dive into this one because I think it is the biggest M&A deal that we've seen in the industry so far this year. I mean, feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. But Ted, how about you begin by giving us the top line figures of this transaction? What's on the deal sheet? Okay,
so as announced on Friday, the merger the deal between Intralot SA and its acquisition of Bally's interactive arm is valued at 2.7 billion cash, with a 1.5 billion upfront payment. And Intralot has taken circa a 900 million euro debt bond to finance the deal. The remainder of the value in Bally's Corp, it will be paid in a transaction of 870 million new shares priced at €1.30. And that deal will see Bally's Corp become the majority shareholder in the new venture, taking a 58% shareholding. Intralot has secured further access to 400 million guaranteed by Greek banks. I think what's interesting here is like the interplays between kind of the funding and the composition of the new business. Yes. And on paper, I think that this is one of the more risky deals we're going to see in iGaming. And we also have to we shouldn't forget that Intralot for the past 5 years have really kind of focused on transforming the units to kind of deleverage from their debt, which currently stands at circa 300 million as of 2025.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so a really interesting deal, not just from a financial perspective, but also from a strategic perspective, really, because I think most of our audience will know Intralot as a provider of sort of lottery operations and solutions. But this really sees them go into, sports betting and online casino. What does this deal tell us about Intralot's ambitions to diversify its operations?
I feel like listen, Intralot is not going to grow in the United States, so I'm going to defer to Ted on this one because it's a European play, I think.
You see, on the prospectus it says that it's a US play, but look, let me...
That's all crock of horse manure. That's such nonsense.
Well, okay. I think Intralot is a company, stalwart of the Athens-listed exchange, and I think that it kind of has to view how it's going to get out of its slump and really kind of attack markets and grow its business. It can no longer be just reliant on kind of managed services for its key contracts in Europe. It has to expand beyond lotteries and add kind of a composition of a digital element, which it has been missing. And it sees that in GameSys, which is the former unit of Bally's Corp now. It's a risky deal. It is leveraging a lot of debt to fuel its ambitions, and I think that you're looking at two companies that have to kind of get a move on and have to get to the kind of the next platform to kind of remain in that kind of big tier one domain.
Look, this deal has, it's garnered a lot of attention since it was first announced, I think, earlier in the year. I think it was during the summer, and it has raised a lot of eyebrows. Ted, come to you first, but what has the European reaction been to this deal? And then we'll head over to Jess to see what kind of dent it's made stateside. We'll come to you first, Ted. How are the Europeans reacted to this?
I think they're probably be more positive about this. And look, first of all, in the European kind of M&A phase, you don't really get, especially for Greek technologies, you don't really kind of get this level of deal and that kind of valuation at 2 billion. And that's significant in itself. Also, the fact that just what a heritage firm Intralot are, and how it kind of revitalizes its contracts with the key markets in Croatia, Turkey, Greece, and how it can now kind of exploit new lottery opportunities. It needs, again, very much kind of feeding into this constant narrative of the transition of European lotteries into digital format. I think it kind of sees its advantages there, and it needs a partner to kind of trigger that. And I think it sees that in what Bally's will bring to the table, and also its IP.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Jess, you said that this is absolutely not a US play, but what's the reaction been like in the United States to this?
I mean, the day after it was announced, Fitch downgraded Bally's credit rating. So there you go. Bally's is drowning in debt. We're talking, I think last I looked, it was like $5 billion in debt. And so does this solve some of that problem? Yes. But then you're also now the majority stakeholder in a company that, is Ted has pointed out, just took on a whole bunch of debt. So it just kind of feels like you're kicking the can down the road a little bit here. Bally's Interactive is not a product in the United States that succeeds. It's still not cash flow positive. It might be next year. I mean, I guess I can positively say they're not like a DraftKings or a FanDuel where they were, hundreds of millions of dollars in debt. This is just a unit that they, has never really performed. But you go back a couple of years, they put a lot of money into this unit. They acquired the BetWorks platform. That was a huge deal. They acquired Monkey Knife Fight, the DFS company, and then just shut it down. And then you had, I believe the GameSys deal was close to $1 billion, wasn't it, Ted?
Yes, it was. Yes. I mean, that was the second flip, yeah, on a GameSys deal, yeah.
You've poured a lot of money into something that gets 0.5% of market share in states that it's in. It's not a pretty look. So this reminds me of the HG Vora kind of pen battle, in that I think there are plenty of people that are just very frustrated that Bally's keeps getting away from what they're good at, which is running regional casinos. And now, I mean, when I heard a couple of weeks ago they put out plans for the new Tropicana property in Las Vegas, I'm just where is this money coming from? It doesn't make, I mean, I guess you have it coming in from this, but this is a group that couldn't afford to keep the Bally's Chicago project open, and GLPI had to further invest, their REIT partner. They're somewhat inexplicably still in the running for the New York State casino. There's 4 left, and they're one of the final 4. But Soo Kim has not really presented the same kind of financial backing terms that others have. He's spoken in broad terms. Props to them for getting the Trump Links property at a relatively low price of $60 million. But it's just, they have so many projects and they all cost so much money, and they're already so much in debt, that I think everybody is just kind of maybe you scale down, maybe you sell off this Vegas property, maybe you do something so that you don't keep making this hole deeper and deeper and deeper.
Yeah, I mean, over the last couple of years, it hasn't, if there's been a piece of news coming out about Bally's, it's rarely been a small project. There's a lot of big projects in the pipeline. Look, Ted, the companies have outlined, big plans across both B2C and B2B verticals. Mm-hmm. How do we look at this in terms of integration? Is this realistic in the near term, or is this going to be a much longer term project?
Look, going back to just how risky this deal is and how leveraged it is, they got to hit the ground running. And I think that there's going to be a huge focus on the integration of GameSys platforms especially for Europe on cost controls. Also, how much kind of margin can they squeeze out of on the product integrations. And I think that's going to be kind of a key focus for analysts on how successful this deal is. Again, it's going back to this kind of theme of like what an odd couple these two are to kind of integrate together. And I think the tech assessment is going to be huge on both parts.
Okay, great. Well, Ted, Jess, we'll take a short break and we'll come back and we'll talk about this a little bit more.
SBC Leaders connects the gambling industry's top-tier operators and associations to share the best ideas, collaborate on solving the biggest issues, and push innovation throughout the betting and gaming industry. If you're an operator and want to join the discussion, visit sbcleaders.com for more information.
Welcome back to iGaming Daily. Today we're talking about the big merger deal between Intralot and Bally's Interactive. Jess, it seems interesting to me that Bally's was seemingly very happy to spin off this online unit because it's only a few years since the acquisition of GameSys itself. Why do you think? Well, I guess you alluded to it in the first half, but why do you think that they were so happy to just sign themselves up to this deal?
I mean, I think, again, you need cash and you don't have a tremendous amount of assets that are worth all that much or that you want to offload from your portfolio. And so I think, like I mentioned, the list of also rans on the digital side that they acquired and then kind of did nothing with. GameSys is the one that it still has some value as a B2B studio. And I think so that explains kind of part of it. But you also look like they did a lease back on their Lincoln property in Rhode Island. Like, I think they've just kind of run out of REITs to do, It's just like, okay, well, this is also like Bally's doesn't really have that big of a European presence. So I think there's still value to the GameSys brand over there. That's primarily like a European legacy kind of company. And so why not put it in the hands of somebody that can do more with it in Europe than Bally's can?
Mm-hmm. And we talked about the Bally's Interactive unit having they struggled quite a bit over the previous 2 or 3 years, and I think it led to was it Lee Fenton, the previous CEO of Bally's, stepped aside, and Roberson Reeves, who is going to lead this new venture, came in and led the interactive unit of Bally's. Was there any signs of turnaround in the interactive unit over the last maybe 12 months that sort of have any shoots of growth?
Right. I think here you got to step back and see what everyone's going to bring into the table. And look, one of the things that Robson told us and, interviewed by SBC was that, look, well, yes, this is still a company that can, get a billion revenues, also kind of a beta effective, and it has kind of strong IPs on its platform and its games and stuff that they believe that if they can attach to other components, they can secure kind of commercial contracts, not just in Europe, but also out in the States. Now, again, I think Jessica will now kind of allude to, but that's what every company says, especially in terms of the kind of that lotto play. But my response here is that, at one point, doesn't this come into play that US lotteries need to get digitized, need their next evolution, and isn't that kind of a battleground for growth?
Sure, they need to digitize. They're not going to do it with Intralot. Do you not know what the deal is with Intralot in the United States? With Washington, with the whole DC thing?
Yeah, bring us up to speed.
Okay, so the DC lottery was mired in scandal because this Intralot deal for sports betting was so shady. Intralot agreed to pay $6.5 million to the government because they admit no fault, but the allegations are that they lied, they illegally subcontracted, they misconstrued what they were doing. And this stink of that is already causing problems in that they almost had a Maryland lottery deal across the finish line. And you know what made it fall apart? They didn't meet the terms of what was necessary for subcontractors. You're talking about a country where these lotto deals are 10 years, 20 years, 15 years. And all of these partners that currently exist have digital arms too, that I don't see what state is just going to be like, let's go with the people that are like, have nothing but a terrible track record in the United States. I think they have the Illinois lottery. I think that's the one that they have, right? Or no, that's Allwyn. I'm thinking of Allwyn. You know, like this is not a company that inspires confidence in the United States.
Well, Ted, you mentioned it a minute ago. You interviewed Robson Reeves in the latest issue of SBC Leaders, our magazine. We'll leave a link in the show notes if people want to take a look at that. What did he say about the US? Was there any strategic pillars that they wanted to hit in the US, and was there any counter essentially to what Jesse's saying here?
They were quite adamant that, you know, they view lotteries as an opportunity there. Also, again, going back, Intralot is a company that has transitioned immensely from in the 2000s, changed kind of its structures, kind of deleveraged from debt. Also, the fact that, you know, he is a stalwart of gamesters. He has been there from the start. He's seen its growth as a digital brand. It has, you know, access out in the UK. It's particularly big presence with Jackpot Joy, also Virgin Bets. So it can tackle major markets to scale in.
Mm-hmm. Okay, as we sort of bring this conversation to a bit of a close now, I know we've outlined that it's a little bit of a risk of a deal, considering the levels of debt involved and some of the challenges that the company faces. Could we see this merged group break into top 10 gambling PLCs, maybe top 15? Ted, how would you assess this one?
I think how long's the rope here? And I'd say, are we looking towards kind of how, you know, this pans out in a 5-year scale? Then maybe. And the reason why is that I think, you know, you're kind of looking at kind of the digitization of companies. Now, going back to the States, you know, you have players like DraftKings and Flutter that are kind of now entered kind of that top tier. But I think there's still room. There's a lot of companies there that are still very much kind of land-based, just solely land-based focused. Maybe that's that block that could get ruptured.
And Jess, how would you assess this one?
You can tell I'm just not sold on this. I don't think that, I mean, Bally stands a chance to remain like an important brick and mortar player in the US. I think I'm glad they found someone to do something with their interactive division, but like, I don't think in the United States there's any growth to have. So I don't know how much this is really going to improve their position.
Mm-hmm. Well, we've got two differing views here. Well, you know, we've got some more hopeful, more optimistic, and then some more of the.
I guess I should full disclosure. I did briefly work for Bally's. I probably should have said that up top.
Okay,
but
yeah,
that was like 3+ years ago, nearly 4. And so I think some of it is I'm aware of all of the money that they've poured into digital to no effect.
Okay. Can I just ask a question here? Like, why is there so much movement in the gambling technology space in the past 2 years? As in, you look at your IGTs, your Scientific Games, Bally's, everyone is kind of reshaping their organizations, either shifting out units or kind of incorporating them in. And there's got to be a reason for that. It's got to be, they've got to see an opportunity somewhere where they can take an advantage. And I think that's why I kind of take kind of a more positive view than what Jessica's saying.
Yeah. I mean, let's take the Prize Picks Allwyn acquisition. That one makes a ton of sense to me because you have a group that, you know, they're set up with their FCM. They're going to be in prediction markets. They're going to be in all 50 states. There's access already established. It's a much cleaner deal without like the same kind of debt restructuring that we see with this one. That like, yeah, I fully get why a lottery first kind of company like Allwyn would get involved with something like Prize Picks. In the United States, the digital lottery opportunity is not going to be sports related. It's going to be online instance, which are more kind of slot technology and that sort of thing. And I guess GameSys has some of that. But like I said, so does IGT Digital, so does Light and Wonder, so do all of these kind of like existing groups that Prize Picks is serving a different need. And I'm not seeing what in this deal serves a need that isn't already provided by their partners, unless the plan is to undercut them.
Brilliant. Well, that's a great place to leave things. We'll leave a link to Ted's interview with Ropes and Reeves and to the story confirming the deal into the show notes below. But for now, Ted, Jess, thanks very much for taking the time to debate this one with me. And thanks very much to the audience for listening. And don't forget to tune into iGaming Daily tomorrow for all the latest global gambling news.
Thank you for listening to today's iGaming Daily podcast, supported by Optimove, the #1 CRM marketing solution for the iGaming market. If you want to find out more about some of the subjects raised today, feel free to explore any of the sites in the SBC News network or check out the latest edition of the SBC Leaders magazine. Happy reading.